Welcome to Christian Living in the End Times. I'm Jamie. Today we're looking at money in the Bible. Bailouts bring bondage. That's right. And our key verse today is Proverbs 22:7, where Solomon says, "The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." The one who borrows is servant to the one who lends. There was once a day when people didn't pay their debt, they went to jail. Financial obligations were regarded as something to be honored. Payment of debts was a moral obligation, not an option. In reality, repayment of debt can't be shrugged off. Financial responsibilities now are being handled in sometimes different ways. The end result always is the same, however. Prison was a former way of settling debt when someone couldn't pay. Debtor's prison still exists, but another dimension has been added. If someone cannot pay a debt, someone else will gladly bail him out. There is still a price to pay. Debt sometimes will be paid by a third party. There are various people and institutions willing to pick up the bill of debt. Imagine someone eager to get his hands onto that which someone else owes. A person might get into debt over his head. The bank or another credit agency may then pay his bill. A person's debt is always paid, but at a price. The price, in one way or another, is servitude, becoming a servant. The borrower is servant to the lender. What Solomon says comes true. It's a great principle that we need to know and to understand. The new lender becomes the new master. Bailouts always come with a price. If one is fortunate, that price may only be a time of paying back the money which is due. Sometimes a bailout comes with a mighty steep price. The wise decision in a free market is that a company will either make it or go out of business. That's kind of what capitalism is, a free market. Either you succeed or you fail. And if you're not good enough, or the market doesn't want you or need you, then you fail and somebody else better takes your place, or the best ones rise to the top. So we can have the best products, the best services at the most cost-effective price. So anyway, it is now becoming habitual for federal governments to give bailouts. Whenever the government pays for whatever it pays for, it controls. Whatever the government pays for, it controls. A company may receive a government bailout. The government then has a voice of authority in that company. The larger the financial assistance, the more it has to say. Taking a bailout from the government causes one to go under more control of it. Unfortunately, government is less and less on the side of the individual's freedom. And we're particularly looking at the shift or the change that's happened in the United States of America over quite a few decades. The world's national governments are necessary institutions. We need them. Government is an institution ordained by God, which all should honor and respect. It's biblical. That's what God says. The problem is, for most, if not all, most of the governments have wandered far, far away from the intended function. Any government is supposed to restrain evil and promote good. You notice that what governments should be doing is restraining evil, punishing the evildoer, but promoting good. More and more we have a government, particularly in America, that does not respect God. God is the one from whom any government authority receives its power. That's where the power comes from, God. God is the one from whom the government looks to and accounts to ultimately. The federal government has been increasing in size at inconceivable proportions. A small increase is understandable since our nation has become more populous and complex. What we're witnessing is not within the scope of institutional purpose. Government loans and subsidies seem to be prevalent throughout all sectors of society. Large corporations have taken bailouts. Now they have a portion of government invested in them. Government loans are hurried to students, farmers, businesses, veterans, and so forth. The private sector borrower has become servant to the governmental lender. That has tremendous ramifications. One way that bill, the bill of debt, is going to be due. The shocking forfeit of freedom will be the fateful price to pay. You see what's happening, friends? Is that all in the name of getting something now, people become a servant, and then one day that there's a price to pay, a full servanthood if you can't pay off the debt. The love of money is the root of all evil. The borrower is servant to the lender. Combine these two powerful truths, and we're able to discern what is happening in the global arena. Let me say that again. The love of money is the root of all evil. What you see people doing, institutions doing, businesses doing, governments doing, a lot of times it's for money. Follow the money, and you'll find out what's going on, who's in charge, and what are they doing with the money. So you see, it's that's the root here. And then they know the second principle: the borrower is servant to the lender. The rich ruleth over the poor. The borrower is servant to the lender. If you know those two things, you can trace it all the way to 666, the mark of the beast. That's right. And this is how they get there. This is partly what allows it to get there. So here we see also that the governments of the world are the strong arm by which those principles are enforced. Following the money trail reveals that the real muscle comes from the world's central banks. Private control of those monster-like, and they are huge, and their tentacles are everywhere, these monster-like lending institutions gives the upper hand to its owners. Government powers are not the ones in control of those mammoth banks. The Federal Reserve is one of the world's central banks. Notice it's one of them out of many. It is not a department of the United States federal government. Although there's a certain relationship between the two, that bank is not run by elected officials. Notice this, we elect other people into office, our representatives, our senators, and then also here we see our executive branch, the president. That's just on the federal level, but nobody's ever voted for any of the board members who are in our central bank. They seem to be not accountable directly to the people, is what I'm trying to say. So these kinds of banks can loan money to international corporations. So the central bankers really call the shots. Those that loan money to are the servants. The borrower is servant to the lender. If one can figure out how to bail out an entire nation, think of that. Just think of the control one would have over that nation. The central bankers found a way to consistently capture more control. See, that's what we're talking about. It's really about control. The rich lending bankers will rule over the poor borrowing nations. This is what's happening. China is buying more American debt. At least they have been. The EU, the European Union, is flexing its financial muscle toward Greece and Spain, and that's quite a while back, but they're into other things today also. These are just examples of how one group of people purchases control over others. This is a kind of war being played out, and most don't even know that they are on a battlefield. We're kind of on the battlefield, and other people are making these great maneuvers in this war, this battle. Fiat currency, remember, it has no standard. It can go to zero. Fiat currency is an instrument used to put pressure on people. When currency is inflated, the value of that currency starts its projection and becomes worthless. You see, once a currency is inflated, you just have to keep working more and more and more, get more dollars to pay for the same things, and the prices all go up, and that's, there's many factors there, but one of them is just a pure plain inflation, to where prices of everything goes up. And so if you want to keep your standard of living, now you have to get more dollars. Well, how are you going to get more dollars? Normally for most people, it's work more hours, more time away from home, more time away from vacation, doing with less, living an austere life, not going out to eat quite so often, not taking trips like you used to, and all these different kinds of things for the common person. So out of control spending is another tool of critical importance. If a government spends and spends, it places itself in a vulnerable situation. The people crave to keep their lifestyle and cry out for a solution. Big central banks step in to bail out the nation. While it takes time for the process to happen, great change takes place along with that accepted bailout. National control begins to leave the hands of the people. At least in America, we the people, well, not anymore. It's whoever's bailing us out. We the bailout people, we the lenders is really who's in control. The strength of a country shifts from its guiding documents and elected officials. No more the officials of the people. It goes to the private bankers. So this out of control spending is one thing. And so you just look at the United States national debt. Who can keep up with that? The nation state, and on our debt, see, we borrow money because we don't collect enough taxes for everything. The nation state hands over its power to whoever gives the bailout. The large banks wind up calling the shots without ever firing a shot. Control is granted to them by default. If the people are asleep, this transition takes place almost without notice. Material goods and so-called security, see, they're promising security, promise everything is going to be okay, we'll take care of you. That becomes exchange for liberty. So people are receiving money and security in exchange for their true freedom and liberty. Bailouts are given because control must be handed over. Bailouts bring bondage. The borrower is servant to the lender. This transfer of control, you see what we're looking at? We're looking at not just an individual, taking out a car loan and then paying it back on the bank until he pays off his car, then he has his car and does whatever with it, or a house mortgage or something like that. Although you could, maybe there's other ways to purchase things than to get into debt. But it's common for a lot of people with those two kinds of loans. But nevertheless, what we're looking at is something on a greater level, where now central banks, or perhaps the World Bank, will now start bailing out nations. And so now nations, they can continue on with their lifestyle and they won't collapse, but yet now they have to do, there's strings attached. So the strings attached are less liberty, less freedom, less local control. And now the control goes to some bureaucrat in an office somewhere. So that's not the American way of life. That's not liberty and freedom under our Constitution, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Who owns America's debt? Why does the richest nation on earth, with the world's greatest economy, world's strongest economy, have such an enormous mound of debt anyway? Don't we have enough? What's going on? It is evident that these sweeping bailouts are really a power struggle for control. Some people think that we're going to go back to the Dark Ages in technology and civilization. They think things can't keep on going the way they are without something breaking. Well, that's true. No one can spend more than they bring in without something giving out. As the saying goes, if your outflow exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. The goal is not collapse, but control. See, that is, the world cannot go back to the horse and buggy days. Those days were not so bad, but one cannot rule the world that way. So we're heading down the path toward a one world government, and many of the pieces are already put into place, and many more are happening right now. And the Bible says that about the Antichrist, who'll rule and reign over the whole earth. And then after that, Jesus Christ will rule and reign over the whole earth. So yes, there is a one world government coming, but we see that you can't do that if people are living like they were in the 1500s or 1600s. You can't have global control that way. Your control can only go so far. So the goal is not collapse, but control. The horse and buggy days, those days were not so bad, but you can't rule the world that day. Chaos and ruin may come to some as casualties of this financial war. This may be true to a few pockets of civilized people from time to time, but notice that total calamity to civilization and world dominance cannot happen at the same time. The observed direction of world banking, that is what we have observed so far, those affairs is not about ruining civilization, but about controlling it. You see, you can't have world control without controlling the money, and you really can't control the money. Well, at least the means of what's happening is the central banks, and then you put all the central banks together, and then you have the the International Monetary Fund, the biggie with the special drawing rights, the bank of all banks, if you will. So it's not about collapse or about ruin, but about control. Although there may be little pockets of collapse or little pockets of ruin, but not completely. It's about control. It would be very difficult for someone sitting in Washington or Strasbourg in Europe or in any other seat of power to rule over a society in ruins. The better way of keeping command is through modern technology, isn't it? Is it easier to communicate orders on foot or over the internet? Is it more convenient to collect taxes by going door to door or via electronic filing and banking? Is it not more simpler to watch people with satellites, traffic cams, website monitoring, inspection of credit card transactions, monitoring the phone, etc., etc.? Of course, the central banks and supranational, that's a government above the nations, like the European Union is a supranational government. It's over the nations of Europe. So the supranational entities want to keep civilization progressing at a good pace. There are too many enjoyable delicacies which which would no longer be available if civilization just collapsed. You just wouldn't have all the fun things to do and all the wonderful places to go if everything was total ruins. No, it seems the world's powers are way too far to turn back now. More dominance is being gathered by giving out loans with high stakes. The larger the loan, the bigger the prize. You see, the United States is in incredible debt. And some have said that they thought that those who are borrowing to such great degrees have no intention of paying it back. Well, it could be that one day the United States, like other countries, would be so bad in debt that we would say, help us out. And then the international banking system would bail the United States out. The borrower is servant to the lender. So, and that's one way to get rid of or to make the United States of America less strong and less forceful, and to quiet her down so that the world governments could do what they want to do without the United States being in the way. So consider, how does one nation gain control of another by buying its debt? Well, because the Bible says the one who borrows is servant to the one who lends. So if you buy up the debt, there you go. The one who bought up the debt controls things. If the rich rule over the poor, who is going to end up ruling over who? Who are the really rich on this earth that will be ruling over other people? What kind of servitude is associated with national bailout? Sometimes these smaller nations get bailed out by the International Monetary Fund or get a loan from the larger nations, and then these other nations start start ruling by proxy. They start telling them what to do, and then they have to do it because they've already taken money from them. And then also, why does control and not collapse seem more viable for future international scenarios? By that we mean that we know that one day there will be a global control. There will be a one world monetary system, and one won't be able to buy or sell without a certain mark. Well, how do we get that? How does that get control over that? Well, it's just by one debt bailing and one debt going on to the next debt, up to the higher debt, up to higher debt, up to the bigger one, up to the international one, and then now you have the control. That's where it's headed. So bailouts bring bondage. The borrower is servant to the lender.